We often make this simplistic mistake of considering what is typically performance appraisal as performance management. So today I'm here to basically explain you the fundamentals of performance management and how can you do a better job at managing workplace performance. So let's quickly get started. Bear with me till the end and I hope you enjoy this session. What we consider performance could be very different from the observing object or the observing group of people. Let me give you a very simple example. Consider your favorite team or your club. Now, when they are playing the game, there's one set of observation of their performance which is based on your own projection and understanding and of course your own biases, right? While the team has its own understanding of how they performed and why they performed in a certain manner in the way the performance got rolled out. So you can clearly see that whole understanding of exactly what do we mean by performance and what it means to every stakeholder in the whole process. In the process, we also end up making some presupposed observations about how performance should have been. Take the factor of certainty versus risk. Now, every performance could have an element of certainty, which means through practice, through regular prior habit forming nature, there are certain tasks we could do in a very easy manner, in a very confident way. However, there would be elements also of risk when we are facing a first time opponent or when we are probably doing something which we have not done or probably learnt it the first time and hence trying to execute it. So there is this big role play between certainty and risk. So what could be considered by certainty by one of the parties could actually be a risk, right? So there could be false positives and false negatives interplaying in the exchange of our understanding of performance. Hence, how should we look at performance? Now, to give you a very simplistic and yet a very meaningful clue, let us look at this concept of QTM. So what you'll notice is that in the concept of QTM, right from the receptionist or the floor boy to the CEO, everyone contributes to the organization in terms of QTM or quality time money. So certain people could be offering only one of the propositions while some people could be required to be offering a multiplicity of these factors. Now, if you divide each role depending on, say for example, what is the weightage of one of the QTM factors, you could get a very good and holistic understanding that exactly how did they fare at the end of the year or the end of the appraisal period to denote how was their performance. Now, while this may sound very simplistic, it does hold a lot of meaning when you are a small organization and you want to do not a very broad, large theoretical exercise, but want to run a very composite and a very fast OKR style understanding of performance levels and metrics. Now let us look at the whole difference between appraisal approach versus the true performance or the effort-based approach. Why am I talking about the effort-based approach? Is because often organizations fail to take notice that there are factors of performance which stand outside the individual. The market dynamics, the environment, the economy all play a huge role on whether even with the best of products and with the best of capabilities, people can be successful. So now what is the organization looking at? The organization typically starts by looking at what we call as customer success, which means that the client or customer, which could be both an in-house client or an external customer, whether they have felt satisfied with the service or not. The second part is to look at process efficiency, or in the process of performing a task, whether the process has been adhered to, whether the timing has been further improved, whether certain processes have been eliminated to bring in faster and quicker resolutions, so on and so forth. So hence, process efficiency becomes again a tool which often can be read also as learning efficiencies. The third is talent metrics. Talent metrics, of course, include how as a talent and between the factors of law abidance and leading, how has the person performed, how have they done vis-a-vis their set of competencies and value systems, and hence where do they stand in the hierarchy of potential. Finally, there are financial or revenue goals to be attained, and hence organization look at it from the very specific cutthroat prism of financial rewards and financial gains for the organization. Now, the first distinction to be drawn here is the factor that what organization considers as performance versus what the individual considers as performance is the pure difference of effort. So what needs to be measured truly, because of the fallout of market dynamics and environmental and economic pressures, is the discipline of effort. The discipline of effort can be broken down into the 4 C's. So what are the 4 C's? Commitment is the first C, which means that is the person committed to the objectives of the organization, to the objectives of the team, to the objectives that has been set out. Number 2 is capability, which means that one of them is the capability of leading the team in case of a disaster, or having the right set of skill capabilities to drive through the mission, to drive through the task. And the second is the capability to gain more insights and knowledge while being focused at the task. The third factor is co-aspire, or the ability to have openness of both ideas and culture to ensure that there is higher collaboration and hence higher gains from the organization as an objective, while maybe an everyday monotonous task is being executed. What this does is that this strengthens the collaborative nature, the team building capabilities, and hence makes the organization less susceptible to volatility when it comes to managing critical situations. Finally, the fourth factor of the discipline of effort is the use of cognition or logic-based experiential application of our cognitive faculties. If we do not do that, what could happen is that we could have made the wrong decisions, and which could be seen tomorrow as a lack of performance initiatives. So now you can clearly see that between both these factors, the appraisal approach versus the effort based approach, you can clearly see that the benefit is that you end up becoming a much more transparent organization when you use the discipline of effort approach to measure performance. So what would happen when you actually end up measuring them? When we look at engagement frameworks, which are used basically to measure performance, one of the very simple yet common is to look at the count of goals and the time taken to achieve these goals. One of the things that OKR does is to set a time limit and see how many goals are achieved within that. It is the same thing which happens in a sport. Say, for example, in a game of football, how many goals could you score within a certain period of time, or the other way around in athletics, that how much time did you take to complete the race. Both of them are very good as far as individual contribution is concerned. But when it comes to team contribution, it is important to look at the concept of also achieving objectives, because what could happen that effort put in without alignment to the objectives could lead to individual gains but not to organizational gains. So what the organization does is that it puts up a set of goals and it measures those goals. Now, the smaller, the shorter you make these goals, the easier it is make to not only count them but also to score them. The second approach, of course, is to look at potential versus performance. Now, if we divide both these two factors into three slabs, which is one is absolutely limited and then average and then high, what we'll end up having something similar to a 9 cube, where the lowest of potential and the lowest of performance would be the group of people who could be basically looked at changing job roles or putting them into departments where they could fit better. Next is the average ones, who could be put into training or be given slightly more critical tasks where they would end up performing better and come into a focus and flow stage. The third, of course, becomes where both the potential is high and the performance is high, highlighting your star workers and key contributors in the organization. But is it that simple? Because how do we measure potential? How do we measure performance? One is, of course, as I said, so one is to look at the factors. Is there something else that we can do? I'll cover that in my next session. So thank you for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next session where I discuss the performance factors in greater detail. Till then, have a nice day and take care.